Alright, so I'm going to give you a quick walk around of what I've been working on. The whole door shell itself is coming loose from the inner steel structure inside. So you'll be able to see better from this side, but if I move the door, right now I'm wiggling the door and you can see the hinges aren't moving. So there's a steel part inside the door that the hinges mount to, and that lets the door slide around to be adjusted. And that way it's steel mounting into the steel bird cage of the car. And then they put a bunch of little aluminum rivets. As you can see, this one's loose, that one's loose. A couple of them are loose. There's a couple in here that are still holding solid. So that's kind of a common problem for mid-years, especially since they're 50 years old. And the doors weren't on this car for 30 years, so we really didn't know it until I went to open the door and realized it was wobbling. The other side's okay. And we can either tighten them up and use a hammer and dolly, or you can drill them out and replace them with studs. So here I just bought a pack of quarter 20 weld studs on McMaster Carr. And we're going to drill them out and put these in place. That way we don't risk damaging the paint. It'll be a little easier, and that way we can make sure that they will tighten up. We're not sure if the aluminum rivets on the door will actually tighten up because the hole probably expanded because it worked itself loose. So at the least you'd probably have to re-drill these out and peen new rivets in there, but that's not an easy task seeing how large this channel is. And you can see the head has swirls on it. So we removed those to make them a flat head, just to get rid of those marks. And when you compare this to one of the factory rivets, you can see they're identical. You had to open the hole up with a 1/4 inch bit, and that's also a good thing to do. That way it aligns these holes again and makes sure, because the fiberglass might have expanded or the steel might have expanded whenever the rivet came loose. So that just relines everything up. And then if you compare them back to back, they're like the exact same size, or basically the exact same thickness. So once these are painted, you'll never know that this was done. And this should be better than factory because some of these rivets may not have been hit as hard as others. So to keep them from coming loose, we used red Loctite, which is in a blue tube for some reason. So these will never come back apart. And we used a lock washer and a washer on the back side for the ones that we could reach. The other ones are just the nut. But to reach them, you kind of have to use a little bit of everything. Use different deep sockets, long extensions, because you can reach the first two on top easily. The bottom ones are a little more difficult. Alright, so we already replaced 3 of the rivets, and we're working on the 4th one, which you can see is really loose. And then we have one on the back side to do. This one will be a little tricky to get to, but it should be fine. To remove the old rivets, Dad is using a Dremel with a round carving bit, and then he takes off the head with the pliers, pounds out the old one, and I am positioning a socket with a nut on the back side, and he threaded it in from the front. Since the heads of these rivets are spinning, you really can't use a drill bit because the rivet itself will just spin. So after we use the Dremel to remove it, we use a 1/4 inch drill bit to step up the size. So we have the last one drilled out, and it's been a challenge to reach this bottom point. It's easy to get to these other ones, but this one's a little further down, and it's right where this nut plate is, so a little challenging. So for attempt number, I think 3, I put the nut in the crescent wrench or the boxed end, and I put duct tape around the back side of it so it sticks inside the opening. So I put it on the outside of the nut, and then I put it on the back side, so hopefully it doesn't shoot back, which happened last time. So we'll get this last one on. The door should be ready to go back on the car. This one was a little bit tricky to get a wrench on, but they all kind of are, so you just have to be creative and patient, and it'll work in the end. Alright, so we got the door back on, and all the gaps Still fit really good. So if we open the door, you can see we primed the rivets, so we'll just have to go back and paint those later. But if you move the door, you can see the hinge isn't wiggling differently than the door. So everything's solid again. It's good as new. So now rubber has to settle in a little bit. So now we can put everything in the door. We can put the regulators in the glass and start putting the vent windows and stuff in. So that's going to do it for this video. If you enjoyed, please give it a thumbs up. Check out the other videos on the channel. We have a lot going on with the split window, maybe eventually that car. But tune in for the next one, and I have some stuff going on with the 60 also. So thanks again for watching. I appreciate all the support, and I'll catch you guys later because we have a lot of work to do.